A question which arose out of my weekly breakfast men's group, most of whom are not Catholics like me, but be working through your book and finding it extraordinarily helpful. We haven't finished it, but the one question which has come up from one of the fellows, he said he still hasn't quite got a clarity on this difference between pantheism and panentheism.
Okay, so pantheism and panentheism. Pantheism basically is the matter of the universe is God. So the universe is God. The earth is God. We take it to extremes in some of the green spiritualities where they talk about God, the Gaia, the earth, named after the earth goddess in Greek mythology, is God and is intelligent and is it's XYZ. So pantheism believes that nature is God and that we are part of God. I think panentheism, as I understand, believes precisely the same, but doesn't reduce God to simply the material universe, or indeed the dark matter between the matter of the universe, which is like the vast majority of our space in the universe. God is, in a sense, in and with us, but is not reduced to matter. I mean, that's the best way to put it. God in the it's always difficult to make these kind of descriptions. It's like the question: do fish perceive they're in water?
Do they feel wet?
And well, I mean, do they perceive they're in water, or do they just perceive this as their natural world? And in a sense, if the universe is a fish, the water around it, which may or may not be conscious itself, the material stuff may not be conscious of it, is the God that is permeate the whole thing. And in a sense, all fish are water as well in their bodies. We're all sort of 60 to 80% water. So, I mean, I think this is the thing I think, God is in everything, everything is in God. That would be a nice sort of mantra to remember. So God is present in every plant and every tree, in the air we breathe, in the ground we walk on. But God is also not reduced to being, we're not worshipping stones and sea and water and skies and things like that. I mean, early people, when they tried to understand the nature of the universe, that's how they sort of started off. That's how religion began. People tried to understand why there was fire, why there was lightning. Oh, there must be some powerful being that is, firing lightning bolts at us. And that's how they start getting a sense of God, a God of thunder, a sky god. I mean, in fact, some historians say that the God of Israel started out as some kind of thunder god. But the Jews were brilliant, and they understood that this wasn't just a local thunder god that would hit them with lightning if they were naughty and provided them with rain if they were good. They moved quickly beyond that and realized that this God was both universal, beyond everything that they can see, but everything. God is God of everything, and wasn't just a sort of force of nature, but was beyond nature itself. And I think that's what I suppose we could talk about panentheism. But I mean, panentheism is it's a tricky subject, and some people have been shot in the kneecaps for saying things like that. I mean, poor old Teilhard de Chardin had a rough deal.
Well, I took recourse to the idea of immanence and transcendence. The immanence means God is in creation, but transcendence that he transcends it. But you can't say it's an either or binary. God isn't either this or that. And that implies leaning ourselves into the mystery of the Trinity, which is in fact how we transcend that dualistic binary way of conceiving reality, which unfortunately tends to be very prevalent within more, I don't want to be sort of scapegoat anybody, but the more fundamentalist Christian traditions. who just want to just read the Bible, not look at the natural world, not look at other religions, and believe that somehow they've got it all, and all we need to do is simply accept that Jesus came to save us from our sins, and that's all you need to know. And God's trying to teach us a lesson through this pandemic, and and then let me take it further. We now live on this planet, and okay, the fact that this isn't our home, we just live on the planet. We don't live in it, and we're going somewhere else to heaven, and therefore we really shouldn't be too fussed about what we're doing, and therefore we must continue to exploit it. And that's really obviously why you wrote the book.
I think it's a very interesting point you've made, and I think this whole theme of transcendence and immanence is all in the here and now. Transcendence, it's way beyond. I mean, we're caught in a rather interesting trap. For most Christian believers, our fundamental text is the Bible. And for many people, that's the only religious text they'll ever really read. And the problem is also that you don't read the whole thing. You read bits of it. And even if you're one of those good people that starts in Genesis 1:1 and ends at the very end of the book of Revelation, and you read through the whole thing systematically, to which I say my hat's off to you, because there's some parts which are vary between unreadable and pretty darn horrible. Some of the really nasty stuff you read about mass exterminations and celebration of the death of children in at least one psalm. But if you read that text, we should actually put aside this idea of this transcendence immanence debate. Because one of the things we see right immediately from the beginning, the story of creation in Genesis, there is God creating the universe. So there is God, that's about as transcendent as you get, creating the universe. And then in a few chapters, God is walking in the garden chatting with Adam. That's very imminent, that's very present. I think what we have to do whenever we talk about the transcendence of God being so other, so different, so beyond our imagination, which is true, we must also accept that within that God being so distant, so out there, so to speak, that we also have to see God as deeply present within our lives. And in fact, the mere fact that I can conceive of God suggests that there's an immanence to the very transcendent God that I'm conceiving of. Likewise, if I'm a believer in the very immanent presence of God in the world and immanent God presence in matter, almost like a pantheist, I must also realize that just do this kind of thought experiment. Even if God is this universe that we live in, this matter that we share, this earth that we walk on. I'm taking almost a pagan line on this, pagan pantheistic line. We don't just walk on God. God's in the air, and where does the air go? It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and spreads further upwards. And now from a scientific point of view, we go up through the atmosphere into space. Does God stop at the end of the atmosphere? No. And so in that sense, we can see that even in the very close and immediate experience of God, there is something about God that is far bigger, far more mysterious than we can imagine. And then when we read, we also have to say the language we use betrays us. The language we use for God, this is why so many theologians get into sort of hot spots about so-called heresy. I mean, if you move a comma in one place or another place, this was the joke one of my professors used to say to me, about the Trinity, you're a heretic. I said, so why don't we just leave out the commas? Well, then you're a heretic too. I said, so we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. He says, welcome to the world of theological language. And I think that is something we have to realize, that we cannot on our own conceive of this mystery without the help of others, and without realizing that much of the time we're bluffing.